Chapter 4 The Family. Welcome to Hilltop Farm, Roz. My name is Mr. Sharif. You belong to me now. Roz studied the man with her softly glowing eyes, and in her robotic voice she said, "Hello, Mr. Sharif." "This old fellow here is Oscar," said Sharif, scratching his dog's head. "You won't see much of him. Oscar spends most of his time sleeping in the house." "Hello, Oscar," said the robot. A goofy grin stretched across the dog's face and he let out a yelp. Mr. Sharif pulled a small computer from his pocket. He tapped the screen and brought up a map of Hilltop Farm. There you are, Roz," he said as the robot's electronic signal appeared on the map. "You'll be working all over the farm, and now that you're in the system, I can always see right where you are." "What would you like me to do?" said Roz. "You can start by putting your crate in the garage over there. I'll hold on to it in case I ever need to send you back to the factory." Clearly, Roz was designed to take orders because her body automatically did as it was told. She stuffed the packing materials into her crate and carried it into the garage. When Roz returned, Mr. Sharif was watching a school bus winding along the country road. Oscar barked and dashed off as the bus came to a stop at the bottom of the driveway. A girl and a boy jumped out and the bus drove on. In their matching school uniforms, the children looked almost identical, but the boy was a little taller and the girl's hair was a little longer. They meandered up the driveway and romped around with the dog until they noticed Roz. "A robot," said the girl, running up. "It's about time we got one," said the boy. "She's refurbished," said the man. "She's the cheapest one I could find, but she'll make a decent farmer." "What's her name?" said the girl. "She said her name is Roz." "That's just her starter name," said the boy. "We can give her any name we want. Let's call her Farmbot." "I kind of like the name Roz," said the girl. "Me too," said Mr. Sharif. "Let's leave her name as it is. Roz, I'd like you to meet my daughter Jaya and my son Jad." "Hello, Jaya. Hello, Jad," said the robot. The children looked at each other and smiled. Will Roz take orders from me?" said Jad. "What about me?" said Jaya. "She'll take orders from both of you." "Roz, I order you to do my homework," said Jaya. "Don't waste your time with nonsense," Mr. Sharif grumbled. "Roz is here to do farm work, not homework. Understand?" The children nodded. "Now I order you kids to bring the dog inside and do your homework," said Mr. Sharif. "I need to show Roz the farm." Chapter 5 The Farm. Mr. Sharif turned and shouted, "Come here, Rambler!" A moment later, a pickup truck automatically rolled out from the garage. The truck pulled up to the man and the robot. Its doors opened wide and they both climbed in. Rambler had a steering wheel, but Mr. Sharif sat back and let the truck drive itself. They followed the driveway behind the house, across the backyard, past the trees and hedges, and suddenly they were surrounded by farm buildings. The buildings were different sizes and shapes, all white walls with gray roofs, and they were so tightly packed together that you could hardly tell where one building ended and the next one began. Some were spattered with mud, others had holes and loose boards. The entire place smelled like grass and manure. Mr. Sharif pointed out each building to Roz. There was an enormous dairy barn, the milking parlor, the workshop, the machine shed. Smaller sheds were scattered all around. Rambler drove out from the buildings and down to the back side of the hill into a wide sweep of farmland. A fence lined this part of the driveway, and behind the fence was a sprawling, rolling pasture, lush with tall grass and a few leafy trees, where a herd of cows were grazing. The cows swished their tails and chewed their cud and followed the truck with their eyes. One of them let out a long moo. This was a dairy farm, said Mr. Sharif. So these cows are the queens around here. Their whole world now, your whole world now revolves around them. Understand? I understand, said Roz as she stared at the young calf who was staring right back at her. They rolled past the herd of cows and past clumps of wild flowers, past a quiet pond, past birds and field mice and bumblebees. The driveway cut through a row of trees on its way out to the crop of fields, which were flat and square and covered with bright green sprouts. Hilltop Farm was bustling with life, but it had seen better days. Patches of weeds and bare dirt were spreading across the fields. Broken down farm machines and piles of junk were strewn across the grounds. Thick tangles of brush were creeping in from the edges of the property. They drove all the way out to the farthest field, to a little roundabout at the end of the driveway. Rambler shut off his engine, and the man and the robot sat and looked at the countryside. Far off, where the land met the sea, a train quietly slid along the tracks and disappeared to the north. Then all was still. This farm needs help, said Mr. Sharif at last. It's been in my family for generations, and I don't want to lose it. But I can't do the farm work anymore. Not with this bad leg. That's why you're here. They say Rosin robots can learn to do almost every kind of job, and you'll have to do almost every kind of job on this farm. I understand, said Roz. We've had auto machines for ages, Mr. Sharif went on, but we didn't need a robot until my wife died. Those last words hung in the air for a while. The silence was finally broken by a low rumble of thunder. A storm was approaching. Tornado season was still 6 months away, but in farm country, any storm could become dangerous. Let's go home, said Mr. Sharif. Rambler started his engine and drove back up the long driveway. By the time they reached the farm buildings, a steady rain was falling and the cows were in the barn. This is for you, Mr. Sharif, said Mr. Sharif, and he handed Roz her own computer that controls the farm equipment, and it's got all the information you'll need to work here. Do you know how to use a computer? Yes, I know how to use a computer. Roz had never used a computer before, but she instinctively knew what to do. Clearly, the robot was designed to work with technology. Study up tonight and start farming tomorrow, said Mr. Sharif. You can stay in the machine shed with the other machines. Perhaps I should stay in the barn with the cows, said Roz. My whole world now revolves around them. The man smirked and said, I like the way you think, Roz. Chapter 6. The Monster. The cows were munching hay in their stalls when the big barn door slid open and a mechanical monster stomped in from the rain. The creature marched down the center aisle, her footsteps echoing through the cavernous space until she found an empty corner. And there she stood in the shadows as a storm began to rage outside. Everybody listened as the rain poured and the wind howled and the thunder cracked. By midnight, the storm had blown over and there was only a gentle sprinkle on the roof. But the herd couldn't rest with the monster lurking in the corner. Cows began quietly mooing to each other. "What is that monster doing? She hasn't moved in hours. I bet she's waiting to eat us in our sleep." The cows gasped as at this horrible thought, and then an old cow named Annabel tried to calm down the herd. "Relax, everyone," she said. "There were monsters like this on the last farm, and they never ate any cows. Come to think of it, they never ate anything at all. If the monster has been eaten, if this monster has never eaten anything at all, she must be awfully hungry by now," said a cow named Tess. "I saw the farmer driving the monster around in his truck," said a calf named Lily. "I don't think he would have done that if she was dangerous." Nobody knew quite what to think of the strange creature in their midst. "I think the monster is harmless. I think the monster is unnatural. I think the monster is moving." The herd fell silent as the monster marched out from the shadows and into the middle of the barn. And then the monster did the impossible. She did the unthinkable. She spoke to the cows in the language of the animals. "I am not a monster. I am a robot. My name is Roz."